All right, so it's the start of the tournament. First tournament of the year. I am fishing by myself, unfortunately, but I think I can still do well. I'm going to start with a spinnerbait. First thing in the morning, the fish are up shallow on the main lake, and I'm using a white-bladed one. And let's see if I can get some fish in the boat. There he is, first cast. It's a keeper. Oh, all right. Okay. Well, that was the first cast. This fish ain't huge, but that's pretty awesome. First cast, I'll take it. There he is. Nicer fish. Oh yeah. Oh, come back here. Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah. Alrighty. There we go. Second fish of the day. This is 2 3/4. Beautiful, exactly what I'm looking for. He ate it, man. They were hammering this thing. With a white bladed spinnerbait like this, I have learned that by putting black in it and giving them a darker target, they won't hit the blades as much, and they'll hit the bait itself, and that's why I got the black pointing down, so when they look up they're seeing black. I think that matters a lot, I think, and so far it's working out. Another good one. All right. Eating this thing. Oh, all right. Yeah, it's another pushing 3 pounds. Yeah. There you go. Look at that. Woo. All right. Get him weighed. Well, that was a fast start. In the first 10 minutes, after catching a fish on the first cast, I catch 2 fish that were in the 3-pound class, just a little bit under 3 pounds. Fantastic. Wow, what a start. Very, very fortunate. What's more important is I know I have a whole bunch of good fish up in the Tonto River, but before I do that, let's keep watching because I catch a few more really nice fish here doing this spinnerbait thing in the main lake. There he is. Keeper. One of the key aspects of this bite is to stay out of the sun. So what I do here is I pick up and I just run a little ways into the sun, staying in the shade. There he is. Oh yeah. Another nice one. Keeper. Keeper. Oh, my God. Oh, all right. Not quite a 2-pounder. Am I on line or am I on a stick? And on line. All in. I know it didn't quite look like it, but I almost fell in there. I was right on the tipping point. I could have easily gone in, at least up to my chest anyway. Anyway, I avoided that and I kept fishing. fish. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yes, another one. Alrighty. 3-pounder. There we go. All right. That is probably a solid pushing 3 again. Very nice. All right. After that last solid 3-pounder, I decided to move back down to the dam, staying in the shade, and trying the spinnerbait. It didn't work out, so I fired up the boat and I ran all the way back into the Tonto end of the lake, as far back as I could, and yet have some depth and some structure to fish. Let's see what happens. So I'm up here at the Tonto end, and I got this bank. There's some good fish on this bank. I'm going to start with reaction just because it's still early. It got some shade, and I'm going to stick with this spinnerbait because it's done me so well today thus far. But I'm going to have no problem putting on a crankbait because I caught him on a crankbait. All right, and then I'll slow down with Texas rig or a jig, and I'm just going to keep fishing. Fish. That's gonna help. Really gonna help. Oh, Lordy. Woohoo! Right there, baby. That's why I came here. Look at that fish. That just won me the tournament right there. That's a bold statement, but I'm sticking to it. Well, I didn't win, but I did take second place. That last fish I caught was 4.7 pounds, and I caught it on that spinnerbait. So let's talk a little bit about the spinnerbait and the gear I'm using along with the spinnerbait. First of all, today I happen to be using this particular spinnerbait. It is a half-ounce spinnerbait with 2 white blades. This happens to be what I would call a heavy half-ounce spinnerbait. Some spinnerbaits, when you get them, they're half-ounce, but they're a little on the light side, and this one here, it tends to be a little on the heavy side. The 2 white blades, I think, are key, and I also talked about this little black thing back here that I have pointing down, and then I put a dark trailer on it, which I forget about to show you, but it was on there. Notice I also have a trailer keeper. That's pretty important, I think, when you're buying spinnerbaits. I tend to make these myself, which you can make them out of components if you will, but I do believe there's plenty of companies out there who make white-bladed spinnerbaits. I believe Michels is a brand that'll do it. And I think I've looked once, and I think they do have this trailer. But if you can at all possible, buy ones with trailers, because I'm always putting trailers on my spinnerbaits. Another bait I was using, I didn't catch any fish in the tournament, but I certainly used it in practice and caught some fish on. And I was actually using it in the tournament for a very short period of time. Had a bite on it, but it didn't connect. And what's interesting, you might ask, if I was doing so well on this particular spinnerbait, why did I even switch? Because I switched to this chartreuse bladed one, at least partially chartreuse bladed one, after I had my limit, and I thought, well, maybe I can catch a really, really big fish with it, maybe a big smallmouth at Roosevelt. So I put it on. This happens to be a 3/4 ounce bait. Again, it's a heavy 3/4 ounce, and I'll like using that when I'm throwing it up against a bank that have a fast drop off. So as I'm reeling this bait back, the weight tends to bring it down deeper. Anyway, this is a combination I'll throw a lot, these two. And interestingly enough, I generally throw these two baits in really, really dark, dingy water, almost muddy water. But today, or during the tournament, the water down by the dam was actually quite stained. It wasn't crystal clear at all. And so that's what made me choose the painted blades first thing in the morning when low light conditions, and it worked out, okay? So that's very important. Now let's talk about the gear I was using to throw this spinnerbait. I've talked about these rods before, and I've talked about these reels before, but I think it's worth noting, and I'm going to explain to you why I like these particular rod and reel setup. So this is the St. Croix Legend Tournament. It's 7'1", medium heavy with a fast action. It is rated for basically 3/8 to 3/4 of a ounce of a spinnerbait, and that's easily I can easily throw this spinnerbait, a spinnerbait on this rod. This particular spinnerbait, actually, let me weigh it here. The one I call the heavy half, when it's all geared up, yeah, it actually weighs over an ounce, okay? So I'm actually pushing this particular rod using this bait. I'm pushing the weight of it, so it feels real comfortable throwing this particular bait on this particular rod. But when I tie on the 3/4 ounce one, which really weighs for a total of 1.3 ounces with everything on it, this rod isn't quite the best, okay? Just keep that in mind. But I love it for the spinnerbait. I'm using a Corrado 200, a Corrado K 200 reel that has a 5.0 to 1 ratio. I'm calling out that it's a Corrado K because they don't make the Corrado Ks anymore. They make Corrado Ms, and unfortunately, they don't make the slow speed anymore. I find that interesting. I understand people think they shouldn't have to slow roll, but I can tell you right now, I have done so well on this reel, slow rolling it with a 5.0 gear ratio with my spinnerbaits throughout the years, through the decades, frankly, that I'm going to be lost without a slow speed reel that I can slow roll. But now people will say, oh, Joe, when I'm reeling, I'm just going to slow it down. Okay, yeah, you go do that, because I take a 5.0 to 1 and I slow it down even more if I have to. So I am really, really smitten for these slow speed reels. And if you don't have one and you want to become a spinnerbait expert here in Arizona, I think you should think about it. Now, I don't know if you can get those reels anymore, so I have another good option for the reels. This is an Abu Garcia Revo winch. It is a 5.4 to 1 gear ratio. That's fine. It's plenty slow. I like this reel when I'm reeling it with slow rolling a spinnerbait, and it works pretty good. I can't complain. It casts real well, and it's very smooth. Now, what's one thing about this Revo that is a little different, when I switch from the Corrado and I bring up this one and I start reeling, I can notice that there's a slight, I probably can't even see it, but there's a slight little movement here in the handle as it goes this way and that way. And it's weird because after you fish this guy here for a long period of time, right, there's a little wiggle in here, but it's really, really minor. You're running this one and you decide to pick up the heavier spinnerbait, okay, and you start reeling and you can feel this slight little adjustment in the reel. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's just interesting how you get so used to a particular reel, and the quality of the Shimano is definitely there. There's no question. But they don't make the slow speeds anymore, so you got to go somewhere else. And so here, I think this Revo is pretty good. I use it for spinnerbaits. I also use it for deep cranking. I think this is a fantastic reel. Could the Abu Garcia step up their game? Yes. Get rid of this little shimmy in here, increase the ball bearings, do whatever you can. Charge a little more, because frankly, I don't know if anybody else builds these slow speed reels besides Shimano, that doesn't seem to do it anymore, and Revo winch. If anybody knows about any good reels that are like 5.2, 5.4, whatever to 1, please put it in the comments, because I'd be very curious to know about it. Now that I can't buy the Shimano anymore, I will, use the Revos, but I'm always looking for really good reels in the slow rolling technique. This particular rod I've talked about in the past, is the Physics. It is a 7'2". It is a heavy action rod with a moderate action, very interesting action. And it is a rod that is a combination of fiberglass and carbon, so it's a hybrid rod. This rod here easily handles this 1 ounce or 1.3 ounce spinnerbait. Totally easily handles it. I love it on this rod. So I'll have both of these geared up and ready to roll and working these particular baits. And as I noticed, as I noted, I should say, I'm slow rolling. So when I throw it out there, you're watching me, and I'm reeling pretty slow. And as if I'm throwing up tight to the bank and as it's starting to come back, sometimes I'll even slow down more or maybe even pause just slightly so the bait will fall a little bit. Try to get it another 6-8 inches deeper, just allowing that fish to come up and want to grab it, right? But I can tell you that this is just spinnerbaiting here in Arizona in the winter is something you can do, and I've done it many, many years. I'm not surprised that I did it at Roosevelt. Perhaps I'm a little surprised I did it on the main lake, but nonetheless, that's what happened. That 4.7 pounder was the last fish I caught on the spinnerbait that day. I did try it on a bunch of laydowns in very shallow water, but there was just nothing holding, so nobody came out and ate them. So I kept trying both these baits throughout the day, but the spinnerbait bite seemed to be over. Because the spinnerbait bite was over, at least in my mind, I picked up the crankbait and started to work that. You'll see here I'm using a couple of different crankbaits, and I'll talk about them here in the future, but just watch and enjoy the fish catching. There he is. Oh yeah, another good one. Oh yeah. Oh, nice one. Better than what I got. Yeah. Oh yeah. Maybe. Oh yep, better than what I got. Alrighty. All right, so there we go. That's going to be an upgrade. That's a 210 maybe, but I'm replacing a 170. So let's go. That was the first of a series of fish between 2 and 2.5 pounds. Watch and enjoy how I caught those fish on the crankbaits near the shore and then a little offshore. There's one. Good one. He ate that thing. Holy cow. You're not going to help me, though. All right. Well, he might help me. Shit. Hang on. Get him in the boat. Oh, he just gobbled it. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's another nice fish. Oh, yeah. I think he wanted that. Beautiful fish. It's an upgrade. Yep. That one's going to upgrade the one I just caught. Sweet. So now let's start with the crankbaits I was using. As you can see, I've been catching a number of fish on the crankbaits, and after the spinnerbait died, I caught plenty of fish on the crankbaits. First of all, this is the OSP Blitz. It's a little short, small, dives to 4 feet, let's say, square bill. I used this early on when the sun was still low and there's a little bit of shade on the bank, and I was throwing it right up on the bank, reeling it back, and I would reel it next to and through bushes if I could, or some of the bushes or trees were a little bit bigger around and they're easier to get through. Some of the trees are spindly, and I would slow down and work it through, and most of the time I didn't get hung up. So that's a thing I do when I want to fish into that cover. Caught a couple nice fish with this, worked very effectively. Then I moved to this particular OSP. It's a Blitz DR, Deep Running Blitz. It's a little bit bigger in size, as you can see, not much bigger. It's pretty close to the same size, but it has a deeper diving bill. This one goes down to 8 feet, and so what I was using this one for is, instead of casting necessarily right on the bank and working it back, these fish had moved off the bank a little bit, so I used this to run long cast parallel but out from the bank and would run it down, and it might have been hitting the bottom sometimes depending on the depth, but in 11 foot of water it wasn't hitting bottom, but certainly when I got to the shallower end of this run I would be hitting the bottom. In practice I caught fish with this, in the tournament I caught fish with this, so this is just my go-to couple of baits here. And you can see a theme in the color, right? The water up in the river wasn't exactly heavily stained, but I like throwing chartreuse in the winter. So I just stick with it and it works for me, so it worked out that day. And lastly, I caught, I think, a good sized 3-pounder on, again, this is a Blitz EXDR. It has a bit bigger bill, okay, you can see there. So it dives to 12 feet, let's say. I was making really long casts. I was using 10-pound test line, by the way, on both my rods. I'm going to show you here in a second. And they definitely were making those depths. So this guy was getting down and he was definitely digging into the bottom. I did catch one fish, a good one, doing that. But I'm not sure that digging the bottom was really the thing. I happen to believe that this particular bait here, running 8 feet in about 10 or 11 foot of water, I was catching some fish that were sort of suspended or something like that. It's hard to tell exactly, but I seem to get more bites out of that. But if you notice what I've done here is as I felt as the fish moved deeper, I started shallow with a shallow bill. I moved to an 8-foot crankbait, and then I decided to really try to dredge the bottom in the 10-foot, 11-foot bottom, and I was dredging the bottom, and I did catch a decent fish, so it all worked out. So now let's talk about the rods. I have talked about these rods in the past. When I'm cranking these small crankbaits, I love these particular St. Croix rods. Now this rod happens to be 7'2" length. It's a medium power with a moderate action. I've done a full review on this rod, and it's also a rod, by the way, that's has carbon and fiberglass together, and that fiberglass really slows it down, so when you get a fish on, it helps to keep that fish hooked. And I can cast this tiny little bait, it weighs 3/8 of an ounce, right? But I can cast it a long, long way with this particular rod, and that's why I like it. I was using 10-pound test line, as I noted, and the reel I'm using here is a Lew's Custom Pro Gen 3. Now this reel I was using a 6/8 to 1 speed. It's the slowest speed to have in this particular reel, so I'm liking that for cranking. But getting back to this reel, I'm going to do a full review on this reel because this reel is incredible. I don't know what to tell you. I've mentioned it maybe before, but I love this reel. This is a high quality reel for throwing these crankbaits. This reel, when I'm throwing it out, making a long bomb cast, just about the time I think it's going to start getting gnarly here in the spool, it just slows it down, cleans up that mess, and it just finishes the cast. I am totally smitten with this reel. I'm going to be buying more of them as I learn more about it. But for now, I recommend this reel to anybody who wants to use it. They have higher speeds, 6/8, 7/2, and 8/1 or something like that if you want to go higher speed. But I'm really thinking this is a fantastic reel. Lew's has done an incredible job. I can't say enough because I think it's worth it. Anyway, this combination is just really good when you get those fish on, and it worked out really well. I didn't lose any fish except one. I had one really good fish on. Very heavy. When I set it on, my rod was really bent. I felt it pulling a little bit, but it didn't move very much, and then all of a sudden it just let go.
Oh.
And I think, this is what I think happens. This is my theory about these big fish. I think I was using, I can't remember, I might have been using this particular little guy. I think those big fish come up and they grab it, okay? And when you and you know they're on, and you set the hook, you pull on them and the fish goes, oh, this is weird. I don't know what's going on. And all they have to do is just open up their mouth, and when they do that, you end up pulling this right out, okay? I think that's what happened. This fish probably had it engulfed, and when he opened his mouth, the hooks didn't get hung up on him. But the second rod I like using here is another St. Croix. It is also 7'2". It's a medium heavy with a moderate fast action. It's all carbon. It's the Finesse carbon cranker is what they call this. So this is a pure carbon rod, and if you're not into the hybrids, right, and you want a rod that's got a little bit more power, a little bit more reaction when a fish takes it, you know, and the carbon rods are just faster in action than the hybrid rods. So this rod is also very good. And if you're not into that hybrid mix, you don't like the really slow action of the glass crankers, what they call it, then this is a great rod to use. And I was using, this is also a Lew's Custom Pro. This is the Gen 2. It's not as good a reel as the Gen 3 is, by the way, but it works just fine. And I was using it, making longer bomb casts. I was throwing this particular bait, which is a little slightly heavier, and of course this one here as well, it weighs a little bit more because it has a bigger lip. So these two rods were pretty nice to have on deck because I had different baits hooked, different baits on. So I had the shallow running one and I had this one tied on at the same time. So I could, if I wanted to throw a cast and throw in shallow, I can pick up that rod and I can make the shallow cast. And if I decided to, like maybe we're getting a little deeper, a little steeper bank, and I wanted to have a bait that goes down a little faster, then I could just pick up one rod and throw it. So you'll see me using two different rods, and I was doing that all day, trying to catch better fish. And then as the day went on, I switched out and tried different crankbaits just to see what would happen. Anyway, hope that's helpful, and let's keep watching this video. All right, nice fish. Yeah. Jesus. I know it might be an upgrade. Might not. All right. Not sure that one's going to help. Oh, get out of there. Did it get off? Oh, he's still on. He's still on there. Oh, there he is. Oh. All right. I got him. All right. Guys, jig fish. You know, not quite a 2-pounder, maybe just at 2. Not going to do any good. He bumped it, though. He whacked it. And it's a 1.5. All right. Still biting. I can still catch him a little bit. If that was a big fish, I would have never got him in the boat. That's just how it goes. I think that right there is another upgrade. It's probably a 3-pounder, and I think I have 2.5. So put her on the scale, see what happens. So I've been here since 9 o'clock, and it's almost 2. The fishing were biting pretty darn good. When I first got here, caught a 4.7, caught a keeper, and then caught a 2.5, a 2.52, a 2.54. And another, keeper, and then I catch another 3-pounder, just under 3, and now I'm sort of stuck here with, almost 17 pounds. I'm not really stuck, but I'm just sitting here because I just know there are good fish here. And I don't have anywhere else to go. I might be able to go around the corner, but that, I don't know. It's like I know there are good fish here, so I'm just going to keep trying to catch them. Trying different baits, but every time I go back to a crankbait, I ended up catching a fish or two. But now it's been a while, but nonetheless, that's what I'm still going to stick to it. It's what brought me to the dance. So I do think the fish have slowed down a little bit. They're not biting as well, which is so weird because the day is getting warmer. I would think that they would want to bite, but they just don't seem to want to. Then again, I could have just worn this spot out. In other words, I don't know if that's possible, but I don't know. It's just fishing. Hey everybody, That's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to celebrate with all of you because this channel has now crossed 1,000 subscribers. That's one of the major goals, and I'm very, very happy that we crossed it, and I appreciate everything from you. You're the ones who are making that happen. Next step is we just got to get more hours watched, and I have been remiss in making videos, so that'll get fixed here shortly. This is the first video in about 3 I'm going to put out here in the next a week or two, let's say. I have some video of a tournament I won at Lake Pleasant, okay, and I haven't even started working on that. And I have another great video on flick shake with I took with a member of our bass club. His name is Jeff Stone. Him and I worked. He taught me how to flick shake. Never did it before until I went with him. So that video is coming, okay. But I thought I'd want to get this video out because it's such a unique situation. Catching shallow fish at Roosevelt, catching 17 pounds, taking second place, all on my lonesome. I think that's a pretty interesting story, and I think this video shows that. Anyway, thank you for joining, and as always, be free out there. We're Americans. We deserve to be free.